And hello, everyone, and welcome back. Listen to me. Welcome to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, Coach Elix. With me, my amazing co-host,
Stephen F. Masick / lawyer / medium / author / actor. We just keep going and going and going.
And husband. Hello.
That's right.
Slash. Oh, my goodness. Anyways, I'm discombobulated because we were just talking and it seemed to me like, I don't know, like I thought we had plenty of time before going on air, and all of a sudden our producer is like, okay, let's go. And the music started playing. So
that's because the producer was entertaining us.
Exactly. Yes, with some stuff that we cannot even share publicly on the radio, but that's okay. We'll move along. But anyway, Stephen, what a beautiful day today. We're starting to get this spring weather, summer, like it's coming our way, and it looks beautiful.
It does. And all the buds are finally opening up. And even though my best friend says we only have winter here on the Cape Cod. So,
yeah. Well, that's because anything, colder than 60.
80.
It's
80.
That's true. It's winter. So, but no, it looks beautiful. Stephen posted a video on Instagram. So if you follow Stephen and me, because I actually shared it on my story about the little stream that we have in our backyard next to the pond, and it's just gorgeous, Stephen. I love where we lived. I appreciate it every day. But when you see it like that, it's like, oh, wow. How blessed are we, Stephen?
I know. When I was posting it, that's what I was thinking, that how neither one of us take a day for granted here. Well, a day for granted anywhere, but even, because this is where we live. So in the spring flowers, all the daffodils are just gorgeous too. And my umbrella magnolia trees blooming, and I'm just very excited.
And Stephen, this is your thing. You do all the outdoors, and so you plant. You're organizing the deck, so you're pretty handy. I might say.
Well, it's a little different though, because in every other house we had, I always cut the grass too. So in the last house we were in Norton, we had also a very, very big yard, like over an acre of land. So I obviously got a tractor, and that was just something I did. But then when we got here, for some reason, Elix just decided,
no, it's not going to happen. It's not doable. It's too risky. There's too many hills. And, I can just see you just rolling down one of the hills and getting injured in the tractor. So,
well, when the landscapers come, there's like 3 or 4 of them. So,
exactly.
And they do a great job, and they get it all done. And you're right, though. It's this yacht. It's way, not only is it way too big, but it is, in the back, it's hills in different places. It's just way too much for me. So I focus on letting them cut the grass and stuff, and letting me do all the flowers and stuff like that,
and the beds and the mulch. You do that, and you do a beautiful job. But I have stories for you people. So as you know, we have plenty of animals here. Some of them come and stay, like the dogs and the geese that somehow call this pond their home now. But we also have a meaning one wild turkey, and Stephen has been in hysterics the past several weeks because, according to Stephen, it should be a family of turkeys, not just one. And you named him Jackson.
Yes, I did.
Aren't you proud? I remember that. And so now every time Jackson doesn't show up for a day or so, I cannot tell you the hysterics coming from Stephen about, oh my God, something happened. Oh my God, where is he? Oh my God, I'm a physical. So can somebody please explain to Stephen that Mother Nature just knows what she does? Stephen?
I understand that, but listen, Jackson is screwing with me. He's playing with me because there were several days, as I posted on social media, he was in our front lawn, like right at our front door on our front lawn, laying there like a dog, like our pet dog.
Unreal, yes.
Yeah, he was, and I took pictures, so I posted them. And then he's in the back, he's eating bird seed. So Jackson and I became very close, and I just said to Elix, I'm frantic because it's been, I think, 3 days, and the last time I saw him, he was going up the path that I use when I run in the back. He was going into the woods and that the whole conservation land, which is many, many, many acres. And all I saw was his little bum just going, with his little, like his gobbling, and just his little rear end going in. And I said to Elix, I probably should have just followed him just to make sure he's okay. And now, I don't know, Jackson, if you hear me, like, bro, if you're leaving this many days, you got to let me know.
Yes, send him an email, leave him a voicemail, do something.
Exactly, a little note, something, Jackson, something.
It's just not, I don't know, it's not easy for me being on this side.
No, but let me just tell you, Elix, before we get off Jackson, is that I go on the deck every morning, and before I even get to the birds and the ducks and whatnot, I throw peanuts out for the squirrels. So Jackson was eating the leftover bird seed at the bottom of the deck. So, and he was walking down the little hill, and I'm like, Jackson, and he stopped and looked, and then I started throwing the peanuts out for the squirrels. He came running back like a dog, ran right up to the peanut and smelled it, and then looked at me like, yeah, I'm not eating that. And then he turned around. I've never seen that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying.
That's how you spoil all of our wild animals, and believe me, we have plenty of that.
What can you do?
What can you do? So, Stephen, what else is going on with you? Talk to us about your business, life.
Well, business is amazing. So I'm starting one last class before the summer because I don't teach during the summer. So one course is starting at the end of May for 5 weeks. We'll just bring you right into the end of June. And I just love it. I love teaching, and I am just so blessed because I have these incredible students that every class, there's the majority of these students, Elix, from course one, and I don't know what number this is now, maybe 8, I guess. Every one of them has taken this course, all these courses.
Well, that's because they love you and they love the value that they get from participating.
Yeah, and I love them, and I certainly love teaching. It's like one of my just one of the greatest things I get to do, and get to hear their experiences. I always tell them I learn just as much as they do from them, because within the week period of time you finish a class, it's not back until the next week, and everyone starts explaining to what they've experienced in the spirit mediumship world, and it's pretty amazing, very, very amazing. And work is busy, and everything's good. We're always working on something. A week from Sunday at 7:00, go to YouTube, just find Steelix the series, and that's just going to be something new that Elix and I are starting. So that is going to be a lot of fun. You do not want to miss that.
You do not want to miss that. And what I was going to say something else.
Sound like you were gonna when you said, "Oh, what a beautiful morning."
Well,
that's what it sounded like.
Actually, that reminded me. Back to another Stephen story yesterday.
Oh, what is this?
No. This is. I have to share this. I cannot keep this to myself.
I can only imagine.
Yesterday, Mark, our producer, please hold on to your seat on this one. Yesterday, Stephen is at the kitchen counter. I'm right next to him. We have Baltimore Orioles, and one of the things we feed them is grape jelly, but Stephen learned that they also like oranges. So he asked me to go to the market, get oranges, which I did. And he's at the counter, and he's going to cut he asked me what knife should I use to cut the oranges. And I said, well, I gave him a knife, and then you're going to cut them where? because
Wait,
he
wait a minute. I
liked it.
picked the knife. You didn't give it to
Well,
me. I
you
picked it,
picked
and
the
I
knife,
and I,
but
I picked the right knife.
you did. But you asked me. But anyways, then I'm looking at him. He's got a paper plate, and he's about to cut on a counter, brand new granite counter. I'm like, Steven, anytime you're cutting, you should use the cutting board that we have. He's like, oh, okay. And somehow, I don't even know how this is possible. He goes into one of the counters and starts looking and grabs literally the cheese board. I'm like, and what is that for? Well, that's to cut the oranges. I'm like, Steven, we have a cutting board literally right next to you. It was literally like right. Oh, oh, I didn't know what you meant. I'm like, oh my God, this is, I don't even know how somebody that is so smart, because you are, because you did pass the bar on the first take, can miss common sense so badly.
Listen, the kitchen is not my thing. All right, it
Okay.
just is not, and it's just if you're not around, I either have to do takeout, um, have somebody invite me over to eat, or I just have to meet someone for dinner in a restaurant because it's not happening unless I'm eating cereal or peanut butter sandwiches. See, I mean that's really the extent of where I go. Right?
Well, that is true. But also, Stephen, I also wanted to say I'm very excited because we have our friend from California coming to visit. She's lands tonight, and she's going to be here till Tuesday. So that's very, very exciting. And we're meeting friends tonight for dinner.
I'm really, really excited
Anthony and
about tonight.
Michelle. Yes.
I haven't seen them, either one of them, in a while. And the last time I saw them, they came for dinner, and I had such a great time with those two. Those are just good, good, good people, and funny
They
people too.
they are. And if Johnny's listening, he's probably having a hissy fit right about now. So
No, he got Paquita, so just saying.
oh my goodness.
Inside Seinfeld joke, right?
Absolutely. But listen, today originally I was going to have a guest, Jeffrey Hall, who's a friend and a colleague. But Jeffrey lives in the Netherlands, and there was a little bit of snafu in terms of the schedule because he had not realized that 1 p.m. our time is, I think it's 7 p.m. his time in the Netherlands, and he could not do the show. But originally, we were going to talk about unsafe and unseen, the truth about psychological safety in America, given our current political climate. And I think it's a very appropriate subject for you and I to talk about. And so let's do that. Let's take a small commercial break. And when we come back, we'll be talking about psychological safety that is really currently under threat during this uncertain time in our country. We'll be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, Coach Elix, and with me, my amazing co-host,
Stephen the Medium.
Stephen the Medium. And today, our subject of conversation is unsafe and unseen, the truth about psychological safety in our country. And we are living in uncertain times. More and more, we find ourselves walking in fear, questioning whether we're truly safe emotionally, mentally, and psychologically. And our psychological safety is under threat. So, first and foremost, and I thought this would be a really awesome and important conversation to have, because I know many of you are experiencing this kind of fear and threat today. I know I experienced that. But first and foremost, let me define, if you're questioning what psychological safety, because we all know what safety is, but psychological safety is the belief that you can speak up, show up, take risk, make mistakes without being punished, shamed, or marginalized. And in the context of our country, it reflects whether people, especially those who may be underrepresented or historically excluded groups like the LGBTQ community, they feel emotionally secure, respected, and valued in their environments, including workplaces, schools, and communities. So psychological safety is not just about being comfortable. It's about knowing that your voice matters, that your identity is respected, and that our humanity is protected even when you challenge the status quo. So, having explained that definition, Stephen, can you see why it is so important to talk about the threat of our psychological safety in the current state of our political climate?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, because I think it's one of the things that is not necessarily talked about at all, or I think there's a lot of people that don't even think in those terms. They don't think that's even a thing. They know it's happening, but they don't know how to label it, and that's sort of a recipe for never being able to resolve or be able to get through something if you can't even label it, right?
Exactly. But what we do know we're experiencing, and again, I know that from my own personal experience, and you and I talk about this all the time, what we are experiencing is we are experiencing fear, we're experiencing threat, we are experiencing, the unknown, I guess. That is the best way to describe it. I want to read something to you that, something that really caught my attention that further defines why psychological safety is so important, Stephen. So, psychological safety is like air in a room. When it's there, you barely notice it, but it lets you breathe, it lets you speak and move freely. When it's gone, everything becomes harder. You second guess your words, you shrink, you survive, and you do not thrive. Now imagine that in many rooms across America today, especially for people of color, the LGBTQ plus community, immigrants, or anyone outside of the dominant culture, the air is thin or even toxic. They walk into boardrooms, classrooms, or communities holding their breath, wondering, is it safe to be myself here? Will I be heard or just tolerated? Psychological safety isn't about coddling people. It's about clearing the air so that everyone can show up with full lungs and full voices and not feel like they have to trade their truths for survival. What do you think about, Stephen? That's a pretty strong statement.
It is. It is. And you know what? I mean, and I think it sums up what's going on. And what I was thinking is, I posted, maybe, I don't know, a month, 2 months, 3 months ago, I can't remember. I posted something on social media just talking about how, in the spirit world, when we die and where we are in the spirit world, it is such a peaceful place, and that right now this earthly world is just so filled with anger, and both of those two can't coincide. This can't remain that way without chaos occurring. And from doing so many readings and getting to speak to spirit, I have realized that when you've got something that is pushing people to both sides of the spectrum, like the peace and the hate that I just mentioned about social media, and just like what we're talking about with this subject, is that you've got a portion of the population that you just explained, very concisely, that is petrified. And then you have the other side of the population that absolutely feels even safer because they're on the side of what's going on politically. And when you've got that seesaw on each side and nobody's in the middle, or very few are in the middle, it is just a recipe for disaster. Something there's going to be chaos.
Yeah. But how do we change that, Stephen? What can we do to deal with that for our own mental health, well-being, physical well-being? Because oftentimes, when I go back to that statement, right, walking into a room where there's no air, that's how often I feel. Where you find yourself almost like second guessing or shrinking or just trying to survive. But how do we change that?
I think first and foremost is starting with the knowledge or the idea, or just knowing that whatever situation you're in, there's others in the same situation, and there's so many millions and millions of people that are on your side, even people that you don't know. Just thinking that and knowing that you're not alone, I think just pushes you into the positive, even if it doesn't feel that way at that point. So I think that's sort of number one. But also, I think just getting people around you that are not only like-minded, but people that can support that psychological part of you too, even putting aside like the physical part, but just the or anything else that's connected to what you're going through, but just that psychological part that can just sort of ease you, or just just getting those words of making you feel like, okay, like I just focus on today, I can get through today, and then I worry about tomorrow. And I know that's not the best and greatest place how to live or so, but when you're in this situation, it's tough.
Yeah, Stephen, one thing that, given the example that you share, and this is something that you had talked about publicly in social media, when you talked about these two worlds, right? Our human world and the spiritual world. It's interesting to me because based on what you share, in the spirit realm, there's no such thing as us versus them. That only exists here in the human realm, right?
It does, and that's a really good point, because when I do readings, I always tell people that you have to. I always make a comment like, remember, when I'm giving you these messages, this is the perspective from your loved ones in spirit. So there's no earthly, I call it earthly junk. There's no anger, there's no jealousy, there's no bitterness, there's no blame, get back at you. All of that is gone. It disappeared. However, when you look at the big picture, it's exactly what I talked about with the seesaw, is that, and that's why I posted that, is that even though in spirit they don't have any of this earthly stuff or any of this hatred, whatever the case may be, we're still connected. I mean, because that's the whole point of me being a medium, right? Is that of course we're connected. I get to read people every day and bring their mothers or fathers or dogs or cats, whomever, through with these incredible messages that people know. It's really my grandmother, my mother, because Stephen could not know this, right? So we're so connected, but when one side is at just such a place of not just hatred, but just a place that we've never been, it ultimately the spirit world is going to be affected somehow, some way, and that if it's so off balanced, like to some degree, some adjustment has to happen. And I really do believe, I mean, this is way more than what we're talking about, but I think an adjustment is going to happen, like sooner than later. So
I think the adjustment is necessary.
Yes.
And it's part of our learning, journey, I guess. The best
Absolutely.
The best way I can describe it. Well, you know what? I have many more things to talk about, but I also think we need to take a small break. And let's take a small commercial break, and we'll be right back. We're talking about Unsafe, Unseen. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Helix. I'm your host, Coach Helix, and with me, my extraordinary co-host.
Thank you. Stephen Frederick is here.
And today we're talking about unsafe, unseen, the truth about psychological safety in America. And, Stephen, there's many reasons, there's many situations that are causing a number of groups to not feel psychological safety in today's world. And I think it's important because oftentimes this is a subject that is familiar in the workplace. I talk about psychological safety in the workplace all the time. If you don't create a space of psychological safety, employees do not stay. They're, they resign. They're not productive. But this is beyond that. This is psychological safety as it relates to our country, as it relates to every single individual who feels threatened today. And we could argue that immigrants are feeling a great deal of threat today. We've talked about trans people from the LGBTQ community feel a great deal of threat today. So I think one of the biggest misconceptions, Stephen, is that psychological safety is like a luxury, and it's not. It's a necessity. And I think, unfortunately, what happens is that, despite the growing awareness, I think that people still treat psychological safety as it would be nice to have, rather than a fundamental right to our well-being, to growth, and innovation and performance as a human being. What do you think, Stephen?
I don't know. I don't know necessarily what you're asking.
Well, like what I was saying is that we still treat it like, okay, well, too bad if you don't feel safe. We don't need to provide that for you. It's a nice thing to have. And what I'm saying, that psychological safety is a fundamental. It should be a fundamental to all of us, as a fundamental right to our well-being. That's what I think. And I'm thinking from a spirit perspective, what would they be saying to us?
I think there's a lot they're saying to us, and I think there's a lot that they're sort of monitoring too. But again, it's you have to put your spirit hat on when you start talking about spirit, or like what you just said, Elix. What is spirit saying? Because there's none of that up there, and I use the example of two guys say, and this is just an example. This is just a made up example that I'm using, but from my experience from spirit, and I think from a lot of people's experience with spirit, this is sort of like the collectively, like what spirit feels is if there's two guys talking about another guy, and they're either making fun of the person because of either their ethnic background or the color of their skin, or whatever the case may be, their religious background, then two people in spirit are looking down, sort of looking at each other, laughing and saying, like, isn't it funny that they think that makes a difference? Like, that makes a difference. When they get here, they're going to get to see that means absolutely nothing. And you're spending this time in, trying to sort of elevate yourself higher than somebody else, and it means nothing. It means absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and I think we often, Stephen, we get so caught up on just living in a certain way, or operating in a certain way, and when I think about, and again, I speak from my own experience, and what I experience on a day-to-day basis. There are times. I mean, I said this to you, Stephen, recently. I said, you know what? I have a concern that if we were to travel out of the country, that I would be targeted coming back. Now, that is the lack of psychological safety for me. Because I am swimming in the fear of, oh my God, what happens? What would happen? What would I do? What if I don't have a say? What if I don't have a say? As if that could be a real thing. What if
it already
don't
happened? It already happened.
Exactly. And by the way, Stephen, I am an American citizen. I was born in Puerto Rico. Yet I still walk away with that fear in the background. So I can only imagine what it would be like for somebody else who is here, who got their visa legally. And right now that doesn't seem to matter because there are people who, are still being deported, even when they're here legally. So what I'm left with is, how do we shift that paradigm? Not just for ourselves. How do I shift that paradigm for me, Stephen? How do I shift that fear that I feel? Because by the way, what that at times what I struggle with is I go into the mode of maybe I should just stay quiet and say nothing. But I certainly know that is not what I'm made of. But I'm fighting that. You get what I'm saying, Stephen?
Of course I do. And I think, we talked a couple of weeks ago about our thoughts and, when you get that sort of thought that's in this bubble and you jump into the bubble and you sit in it, that's where all the fear and anxiety happen, because it's a bubble that you're not supposed to be in. And once you figure out to get out of it, because it's just a fleeting thought that you're making sit in your head, then everything just goes haywire. In this particular case, this is a bubble, but the problem is that what the content of what you just explained in that bubble is something that's happening and realistic, and it's not now just people. Listen, we're in a constitutional crisis, right? I mean,
Yes.
there's, as an attorney, it's just killing me to watch what's going on and people having no due process. As an attorney of, like the 4 years work, like going to school part-time, that's what you learn, right? Is that, innocent until proven guilty, that everyone has their day in court. It's due process. That has been wiped away. And so once you wipe it away with one particular category, then it can absolutely and will be wiped away for anybody, including citizens. So this one's a tough one, because this is like one of those balancing thing, Helix, that, and you're an expert with this, not me, when you talk about the fear factor, we need some part of that fear factor, right? If you see a giant bear coming at you, if you're not fearful and you just stand there and just, walk into him, you're going to get killed. So the fear of him makes you do whatever you need to do to get away from him, right? There's a little part of that, because you have to be aware of what's going on, but you also have to be able to sort of balance it with not letting it consume you the entire day or every moment of your life. You have to be aware it's there, but you also have to be aware of not sitting in that bubble 24/7 and just having so much anxiety. And like you said, Elix, being quiet or having so much anxiety. Okay, I'm never going to go anywhere. I'm not going to travel. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to be, and for some people right now, they have to do that.
That's real.
Yeah, it is. But what collectively, again, what people don't understand, or many people don't understand, once you cross that barrier, which has been crossed, there's no more limitations. You can no longer say, it's not going to happen to me, a citizen. And I know we're just using this as an example, because yes, it can. If you can just pluck people up and throw them into another country, then it can happen to anybody.
Yeah.
Without due process.
Absolutely.
So it's not. This is, and I think, Helix, this goes back to what we just talked about. Why this. Months ago when I posted, this can't continue, and that's the reason why it cannot continue this way.
Yeah, a part of me also thinks, Stephen, that it is what it is because it's necessary for humankind. So, I mean, it's still not pretty. It's still not easy to process it, but I feel that we're going through it because we need to. We have to. It's part of our human growth.
We for the adjustment, right?
Mm-hmm, for the adjustment. The other thing, Stephen, I'll start the conversation. Then we'll take a break and continue. But I often think about, even as I struggle with that example I gave you, I often think about others who are dealing with far, far worse real circumstances. Um, our friend Iris, and
Lorraine.
from Lorraine, our friend Lorraine. These are trans individuals, and their threat. It's more than a psychological threat. It's actually a physical threat. And while the LGBTQ community is a target as a community, in many ways, I I have certain privileges because I can walk into a room and nobody's going to look at me and say, "Oh, he's one of them," or maybe they will. But I think there are people who are experiencing a much, much, much bigger threat, and I want I want, if you're listening, I want you to walk away just also being aware of this is what it is, and this is why it's important that self awareness is key. But what can we do about it? How can you support those individuals? Because there's plenty of people who are supportive of the community. There's plenty of people who are supportive of the immigrants. So what can we do? Because there's plenty more that we can do, and these individuals need that more than ever. We all need that. We need that for one another, and we need that for our community and for the country. So, having said that, Stephen, let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue with this conversation. Unseen, unsafe, the truth about psychological safety in America. We'll be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Helix. I'm your host, Coach Helix, and with me, my amazing co host,
Stephen the Medium.
And today we are having a really thought producing conversation about unsafe, unseen, the truth about psychological safety in America. And Stephen, I want to I want to dedicate the last segment of the show to talk about what it is that we can do to make this better, not just for ourselves, but to make it better for those individuals that we know are faced with a real unsafety, real risk, both physical and mental safety. What can we do? What can we do to make it better for everyone?
I think one great thing is if you happen to know people personally that are going through this, is to just stay in touch, but not stay in touch in the sense of leaving a message if you don't get the person and saying, if you need anything, give me a call or I'm here. Just being persistent to actually get the person on the phone or get to see them for lunch or dinner, whatever the case may be, and make sure you're there for them. I mean, because it just, no matter what, whatever you're looking at, if there's some kind of crisis going on or something going on, that sort of, if you need anything, let me know, doesn't work. I mean, it just doesn't. I mean, like if someone said that to me, I'm not reaching out to them, right? I mean, so I think that's key. That's very, very key. And I think, just somebody, being very vulnerable in a position like that, knowing that someone's making the effort to speak to them or see them, it goes such a long way. And also listening to them, just listening to how the particular person is feeling, because I think that also gives anybody validation. I mean, no matter what you're going through, if you've got someone who's a fantastic listener, you always will feel so much better, right, when you're done?
Yes.
It's good.
That's actually a lot of my training focuses on psychological safety and, how do you build that? Well, you just said it. One of the distinctions I talk often about is listen to connect. Listen to connect is not listening with an agenda. It's not listening to confirm or to verify or to justify or to validate or to even to, believe it or not, even to understand. Listening to connect. Listen to connect is listening to just really get that person's world. And sometimes you start by asking questions. I call them questions for which you have no answer. So again, no agenda. And avoid saying, avoid trying to have the answers for them. Because oftentimes people want to just be heard. And that means let them tell you. And sometimes all you need to do is acknowledge what they say. Maybe just say, thank you for sharing that with me. Or ask questions for which you have no answer. Something like, what is that like for you? If you really come from that space of wonder and curiosity, they will tell you, it's really scary. I'm really afraid. And then you just acknowledge that, I get it. And then you could say something like, how can I support you? And then just listen. And they'll tell you how you can be supportive of them. And I also think, Stephen, very, very important, you and I practice this quite often, it's create a circle. I call it a circle of courage, meaning surround yourself with people who lift you up. So that doesn't mean, in the world of being a good human, you can still love people. You can still be good to humanity and create boundaries with certain people that are not aligned. Their values are not aligned with yours. And it's okay. You can be nice. You can be respectful, but they don't have to be your best friend. they do not need or they don't have to have a seat at your table. And be crystal clear about that. You know, like you and I know, we know we know who we want at our table. And if your values, your core values are not aligned with ours, it's not going to happen. You get what I'm saying, Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, of course. Absolutely. That's why I talked earlier about having yourself surrounded by like-minded people that can do exactly what you just said.
Yeah, and one of the things that you talked about is our brain. Yeah, of course. Listen, fear lives in the primitive brain. In the primitive brain, its main job is to protect you from what it perceives as a threat. So it's not a bad thing. You know, it's just doing its job. It's hardwired to protect and defend you. And what you want is to again have the level of self-awareness so that you don't get stuck in that fear-based mentality. You know, so there are ways where you can just get yourself grounded. And Stephen, we've done many shows where you've given people, you know, many examples of getting grounded, going for a walk, you know, quiet time, meditation, exercise. Those are things that can get you grounded and can get you from that fear-based conversation. By the way, I often say fear-based conversations or games are unwinnable. They're unwinnable games. It's like, you know, like scarcity. They lead to that scarcity mentality, and that doesn't work. So find a way to get yourself grounded so that you can then activate other parts of the brain where there's high functioning capabilities, which will then allow you to step outside of that fear-based mentality. Stephen, I don't know if that's making sense.
Yeah, I mean, of course it is. I mean, I think right now for so many people, let's be clear that these are all tools to as you mentioned, Elix, how do we help? How do we support? What information will we give people to help them? And that's what we're doing. But the crust of what's going on doesn't take any of that away, right? I mean, you can do whatever you want, but but it's still in existence for right now, which is as I said, I think 3 times already, it is just not easy. It just is not easy. And I think what you said, Elix, about kindness is you just sort of or at least I do. I just step back and just think, how did we get here? That there's so much anger and so much, but like just not caring about people. Just, you know, but when it comes from the top politically, people just jump on it. People that are just in that mode, and it's very scary for such a huge portion of this population.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Stephen, recently, and I don't remember the details, so I can't quote it. So please, I'm paraphrasing, but I had read in the news that Elon Musk had made a statement about the problem with our countries that, you know, we're too empathetic, and I thought to myself, oh my goodness, that actually is what's causing our worlds to collide in such a way, because empathy is such a core value for humankind, and if you don't have, well, let me scratch that, because I think we all have the ability to bring empathy to the world, but if you don't have the willingness to do that, I think that is at the source of why we are where we are, and how we're stuck in this particular place.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're moving. Unfortunately, I think we're moving to a place that no one ever thought we were going to be moving to.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, you know, we do have to stand grounded. We have to believe that we will overcome. We've been here before. We've overcome before. Doesn't mean it comes easy. Maybe tough, but we will overcome. And we need all of you to practice staying grounded and really supporting one another in creating a space of positive, psychological safety for yourself and for those around you. Go ahead, Stephen.
I was just going to say, and there's so much power in numbers, right?
That is it. That is it. And we are collectively, the power of the collective unit is more than anything else.
Yes.
So, but Stephen, we are at the top of the hour. This is a conversation that we probably could have for ever and ever, and we're probably gonna get back to it at some point. But we are at the top of the hour, so we need to complete the show. So tell people where they can find you and what else is up with you.
I'm so glad we have this time. No Carol Burnett. You can find me at Stephen the Medium. And you know what? At a minimum, if you do something with me, at a minimum, you're going to laugh. Just saying.
That's for sure. I can attest to that because I laugh every day. And if you don't follow me, you can find me at Coach Helix anywhere on social media. And again, Stephen and I will be here a week from Sunday on YouTube. So make sure you follow us so that you can see us on
Steelix,
YouTube.
the series.
Steelix, the series. And thank you, Mark, our producer, for always showing up, Skinny Mini. And thank you the entire team at WARA 1320 AM Radio for supporting us. So we will stay tuned for Mark's show, Mark's Jukebox. And we'll be back again next week. See you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.